Good afternoon. You're listening to Gambling with an Edge. Now here are your hosts, Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer.
And I'm Richard Munchkin.
Our guest today is a director of the sportsbook at the South Point, Chris Andrews, talking about his new book, Then 1 Year, History's Craziest Year as Seen by a Las Vegas Bookmaker. Chris Andrews, welcome back to Gambling with an Edge.
Thanks for inviting me, guys, and it's a pleasure to be here.
You were fun last time. We're going to give you another chance to be fun.
Thanks.
You were on our show not so long ago talking about the book, Then One Day. Now, since I was a math major, I know your book, Then 1 Year, is 365 times as long as your old book. But how is the newer book different from the older one?
Well, I didn't intend it to be so much different from the first book. I really thought it would be an interesting angle to kind of hit some of the same things that we did in the first book. It was inspired by Larry Merchant's book, The National Football Lottery, which I think came out in 1973, 72 or 73. Anyway, the year that the Dolphins went undefeated. Larry had gone to his publisher, I think it was the New York Daily News, and got a $35,000 advance. He was going to bet football for the year. And he was going back and forth between Las Vegas and then his bookmakers in New York. And he had a girlfriend in Las Vegas and a girlfriend in New York. And I read that book. I thought it was great. I says, because everybody always wants to know on Monday morning, I always get how'd the book do this weekend? How'd the sports book do this weekend? And I always laugh. I said, nobody goes into the restaurant and says, how'd the bone-in prime ribeye sell? Did you guys did the salmon outsell the halibut this weekend? But everybody asks you about the sports book. And so I said, well, this would be interesting rather than betting sports like Larry Merchant did, just to kind of run on a kind of daily basis. And there'll be a lot of dead stuff in there, during baseball especially. Anyway, started out that way. Started out going from one Super Bowl to the next, actually starting with the conference championships. And, I thought everything was going fine. Of course, we had the Kobe Bryant's fatal accident that was in there as I was doing this. And, I hate to say this, but like that's within the realm of possibility. Accidents do happen. But then when COVID hit, that was outside my realm of possibility, although obviously it was not.
A black swan, as it were.
Yeah. So, I said, well, I'm in it now. I might as well keep writing it. And then once we got to like June and you could see things were, when it first happened, I was hoping we'd get back online, back normal, like June 1st. And then remember, a good friend of mine said, I think it's going to be more like July 1st. I'm like, geez, he's really being pessimistic. And I talked to Michael Gahn. He says, well, I'm hoping for August 1st. I'm like, geez, you guys are doomsayers here. Of course, it took us a year. I'm not sure we're back to normal yet. But anyway, about halfway through, like I said, about June, I sent the work to Anthony and Deke Castleman, his editor. Is this any good? I mean, and they said, yeah, keep going. We'll just keep writing and we'll figure it out at the end. And in the end, we had so much material. I think the first unedited version, and I knew it was too long, I sent it to Deke. It was 160,000 words. And Anthony didn't want it. Anthony said no, doesn't want anything over 89,999 words. So I said, okay, we got a lot of cutting to do. So we cut. And then I remember Deke finally says, I got it down to 96,000 words. See what you can do. See if you can knock off another 6,000. So I went to work. I sent it back to Deke. I said, tell you what, I got it down to 90,028 words. He said, I think Anthony will go for that. Let's send that in. So he did. And, so that's how it's so different from it didn't intend to be so different, but I think now I had so much material that wound up on the cutting room floor. I think, I have enough for another book.
Yeah.
So
it's a good thing I bet the over.
You could have gone way over if Anthony didn't put his foot down and make us start cutting.
Anthony probably took out 28 words anyway. Anthony does have
he probably did, yeah.
Anthony does have a red pencil that he... Now, one of the things you said reminded me of my world, where if I, say, hit a $20,000 royal and are just waiting to be paid, there will often be 5 different people come by and say, how much did you start with? Is this your biggest hit ever? You know, it's like, who are you?
And why do you care?
But as you are, and you're a public figure in your world, well, I'm a kind of a public figure in my world, so I can't tell them what I think. But
yeah, that's I always was intrigued by that. I had a discussion on another one of my VSiN radio shows because guys were asking, why do you do that? I said, you know, I'd probably need to go to a psychiatrist and figure it out why. Because I think guys always want to know, like, if they had a bad weekend and they could say, well, sportsbooks killed everybody. You know, if they had a good weekend and then they could say, well, you know, I was with all the smart guys because the sportsbook won and I won. So I'm definitely one of the smart guys. Then if the sportsbook lost and they lost, they said, well, I was still in with all the smart guys. All the smart guys lost this week. So did I. Figures I would. And then if they won and the sportsbook lost, then they could say, I outsmarted the sportsbook. I'm smarter than the. So I think there's something there, psychological, that people want to, I don't know if it's confirmation, affirmation, something, some word in there that I think they're looking for.
You know, you said a minute ago that you're not sure you're back to normal. Is that right? I thought I keep reading these articles about how Vegas is doing better than it ever did.
Oh, yeah.
But just not the books. Huh?
No. I mean, like society in general is not. I'm not sure they're back to normal. I think. I think Germany, just like today, dropped a bunch of their COVID requirements. You know, so I mean, I think we're getting back to normal. But at the sports book, no, as a matter of fact, and as we're recording this, we just finished up with the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. It was a fantastic tournament for us. The casino was crazy with tons and tons of action. So that, in case I was deceptive in any way, I didn't mean to be. That we're back to normal in that way. I mean just society as a whole. I don't know.
Yeah.
I still don't know what the hell's going to happen. I'm not sure we're ever going to be back to normal for a while yet. So who knows?
Yeah, we could go back to the restrictions again.
It's not out of the realm of possibility.
That would be less of a black swan. Now, when you started the year 2020, you had some rather serious health issues you were recovering from. Mm-hmm. Are you okay with that? Are you totally out of the woods on that, or what?
Well, I am 65 years old, so I don't know if we're out of the woods now.
Which makes you the youngest guy in this room.
I'm the kid here.
You're
Okay.
the kid here.
I'm still a kid. Yeah, I had bone marrow transplant, a transplant in July of 19, and I was like in quarantine essentially till like November of 19. So just as I was coming out of it, and even then, I was in quarantine, but after that, I had to be careful. They didn't want me working out front, where I always like to be out front to see the action. Now you got to stay in your office. And I was wearing masks, and I think I said I was an outlier. I was wearing a mask before it was hip to do that. If I went to restaurants or things like that.
A trendsetter here on Gambling with an Edge.
How do you like that? Yeah. So I was wearing masks, and you get a lot of funny looks and stuff like that. But then just as I was kind of getting out of it, and even then my doctor didn't tell me I was allowed to be anywhere near normal. The recovery period is probably 2 years before your immune system is considered normal, because they have to wipe out your immune system so the transplant will take. So it's it was a touchy situation, but just as I was kind of coming out of it, here we get hit with COVID, and then my doctors were very concerned. Obviously, they wanted me.
They should be.
Yeah, I mean it was rational, and I think I put in the book that when I first had it, and this is before COVID or anything like that, doctor told me, I want you to stay home for 6 months, and my wife looked at me, and I looked at her, and she said, that ain't gonna happen. I mean, he said, we want me to take off work and not do anything for, that's, yeah, no. I was working from my hospital bed, and I don't, just in my business, that's if that's what you want to do and that's what you are in life, that's kind of what you do, and that's what I did. But anyway, I did come out of it, and fortunately now I'm considered normal. My immunity system is as good as any other 65-year-old guy, and So I lived life pretty normally as anybody else would at this point in time.
We're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit in the story, but you then did get COVID.
I did.
And so did your wife to a lesser degree.
Well, again, I'm going to talk about this in my next book. My wife had some very serious health issues. She had a brain tumor. That's just kind of scratching the surface. It led to just one thing after another. And anyway, a lot of her, among her recovery, her breathing was not normal because she suffered some paralysis within her body, from her head down to the whole side of her body, really. So she has trouble breathing. So when she got it, I thought,
this has to be it.
Yeah, but she, I'm sure we're going to have epidemiologists talk about this in the near future, but she had like nothing. She had a headache like a day and a half. That was it. Whereas I was pretty sick for like 4 or 5 days. My doctors obviously were very, very concerned. But I came out of it okay. But I mean, I was just reading the guy, like a friend of a friend, he's had COVID for 3 months. And so some people get it bad. My wife, who I was super concerned about, had one of the mildest cases you could ever imagine. So, we just don't know about this disease yet. I guess we're still learning, and that's above my pay grade to know exactly what it is. But, we're figuring it out, I guess.
Oh, well, we're glad you're back.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know your wife, but I'm glad she's back too.
Me too. Me too.
So what made 2020 one of the most difficult years for a bookie?
Well, as a bookmaker, we understand there is a bit of unknown, but there's within the realms of possibility. I talked about this a little bit earlier. This was outside our realm of possibility. We know that, here we are, like I say, the NCAA tournament, St. Peter's is playing great. Who picked St. Peter's? Certainly not me. Now here they are in the Sweet 16. And I'll tell you what, this team looks pretty damn good. So who knows how far they could go. But that's, again, within the realm of possibility. Not likely, but possible. But then what happened to us was just way beyond what we ever thought could possibly happen. And we had to really adjust on the fly. And again, I'm looking at it from a bookmaker's perspective, and that's really what the book is about, how we handled things. But, the whole world really was turned upside down. We did our best to, we wanted to keep the business afloat, obviously. We did whatever we could. When we did have anything available to bet on, we put up odds on that. But, of course, which started out as, an epidemic here in America and throughout, kind of like the Western world, spread everywhere. We were booking Australian rugby and Australian rules football, and I think we had some
Korean ping pong.
We had Korean baseball, but we didn't use Russian ping pong, is what some guys did. Michael told me he would kill me if we did that, so I chose not to die, and I didn't do that.
Was it a close decision on your part?
Not really, no. Not. I was very glad that he said, "Don't even come to me with that." Yes, sir. That's fine with me. But anyway, once it spread worldwide, and there was nothing to bet on, and we were ordered to close casinos, which I think was probably the right decision to make. So that all that stuff was just things we had to deal with, and we never in my wildest dreams did I ever think we'd have to deal with anything like that.
So when you did close the book, is there a phone app at the South Point?
Yes. That was the first thing when some sports started coming on board, we opened up the phone app. We were taking people signing up for it outside. We had it in the valet, and I know, I think I said it in the book, we were the first to do that. We were soon copied within the next couple of days. And like I said, I'd have done the same thing if I were my competitors, but we did have a 1 day's head start on them. So we did have that, and the response was good. And as soon as we could start booking some action, we started booking it. And I can't remember right now what I think the first thing was Korean baseball that we started booking. And, it's amazing how guys were betting on that.
Now, South Point sort of notoriously, Mr. Gohan wants people to actually come into the casino to bet, because then they may play in the casino, but they couldn't, right, when it was closed. So did you raise the limits on the app, allow people to bet more?
Yeah, we raised the limits, but that really wasn't the issue. I mean, guys aren't.
The bigger bettors aren't that
They don't want to bet
interested in
20,000
rugby.
on. I'm making up a team's name: the Tigers, the Dragons, whoever it is. But we got a lot of nickels, a lot of dimes, and and I think we set the record for guys betting $10 parlays. Because a lot of guys are out of work and they're looking to put their $10 to work and try to make the rent money. So we had a lot of that stuff going on. But we didn't have any big whales that were even trying to bet. So that was never an issue.
So are there smart money on Australian football and that came to as far as you knew?
No.
I mean, there has to be, but maybe they don't live here.
Yeah, I think they're in Melbourne or Sydney. I don't think they made it to Las Vegas. But it's funny, I spent some time in Australia, and I loved Australian rules football, so I was eager to bet that. And we found it on Sky Sports. We could actually watch it. I kind of loved it. I thought it was great. But as soon as first of all, they closed it up pretty quick once the pandemic hit Australia. And actually, they've been as restrictive as any country, in the world. But they shut theirs down pretty quickly. So it was only a couple weeks where we were booking Australian rugby and Australian football.
But so you had to have some of your staff still coming into the South Point, even though it was closed, to figure this out. You can't personally make the odds on all these. I mean, even though it was just rugby and just football, that's still a lot of games about a sport I assume you know nothing about. So you had to have some help there.
Yeah, we were searching on the internet for any odds that we could find, and that was we did have a skeleton staff, so we tried. Mr. Gone. I mean, we tried to get guys back to work as soon as possible. Those of us who were salaried employees, we took a 25% pay cut. The guys who were hourly workers, they got 80% of their average wages for the last, I think it was for the last year, 6 months, whatever it averaged out to. So he tried to take care of everybody. And, you can see the way the place is now. I mean, he did a fantastic job. And, we didn't lose any employees as far as guys who quit because they were angry or anything like that. And Michael talked to all of us. He says, listen, salary guys, of course we make a little bit more. He says, I think you guys could live on 75% of what you were making, which I totally agree on. And then the hourly workers, they only took a 20% cut. So, and I thought that was fair. I think he was being fair to everybody.
Yeah, that's a lot more than the other places.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So your book describes such things as particular days or weeks where your book took it on the chin and then other days where you won. I assume that's just a normal part of the bookmaking business and not peculiar to 2020. Is that correct? Or was 2020 different in that respect?
No, you're 100% correct in your first assessment. That's pretty much the way our business goes. And, I've been doing this a long time. I came here in 1979. I've been in the business ever since. So I'm used to it. Although there's days when I get frustrated. Believe me, there's days that, I think the other night I came, and I don't drink very often, but I came home and I needed a couple shots of tequila that night. But I very rarely drink. Maybe one time, I hope I'm not speaking out of school too much, but we got murdered. The book lost $500,000, and I came home that night, and I made some herbal tea, and my wife's just kind of shaking her head. She goes, every bookmaker in the country is drinking whiskey right now, and you're on herbal tea. I said, I know that it calms me down, So I'm usually pretty level-headed now. Like I said, I have the luxury of working for Michael Gone, who never gets on me for losing, and Jimmy Vaccaro, who is my consigliere, he always seems to talk me down whenever things get a little out of hand once in a while. But yeah, that is really the typical life of a bookmaker. There's a lot of ups and downs, and you have to have the stomach for it. And I think I do. I probably do as well as anybody, I think. But there's times it does get to you, no doubt.
A lot of gamblers talk about losing streaks and how long they lasted.
Yeah.
I mean, do you remember, how many weeks in a row having a loser, what your longest losing streak was?
I couldn't name you the number, but when I first started at South Point, I started in February. That year, I'm trying to think, I guess it was 2016, it was probably May or June, baseball's tough because you can't move the number and change the winner. Football, you can go from 6.5 to 7.5, and all the guys that laid 6.5 won, and the guys that laid 7.5 lost. It's not that way in baseball. The winner's the winner, and that's all there is to it. All you do is kind of manage your risk a little bit. We were getting trounced every day, and this is my first season with Michael. Finally, one day he called me and says, "You got my attention here." I had to kind of walk him through, and it was not like the wise guys who were beating us. It was like just the general public who we cater to. And I was saying, and I gave him I don't want to mention the figure now. I said, "See how much you lost yesterday in parlays?" Every guy in the world would kill for that kind of business because those are the guys that, eventually you're going to get them. And but they've been getting us. There's no doubt about it. But don't think I'm falling asleep on this. I'm not. So I can't tell you how long, but it seemed like it was an awful long time. We finally, of course, snapped that streak, and things, just the typical ups and downs of every bookmaker in the world.
Now, last week, Tom Brady ended his long 40-day retirement. How did you adjust your futures books to take this into account, including chances to win the division, Super Bowl, and over and under win number?
Well, a lot of that we don't have up yet. I don't put those up until after I have Super Bowl up. But the divisions and season wins, I don't do till after the draft because there's always a lot of, and the draft isn't that important, but the trades around the draft, that can drastically influence a team. So, yeah, not too many rookies come in and make a big impression in the NFL. It doesn't work that way. Anyway, when Brady announced his retirement, I probably had Tampa about 8-1, something like that, to win the Super Bowl. And I went to 50-1. I mean, who's their quarterback? Blaine Gabbert? It's got to be at least 50-1. Anyway, we had it there, and a gentleman came in and he bet us, again, I don't want to say the number, made a pretty decent sized bet at 50-1. I went to 30-1, and I'm not sure it was him, but definitely somebody else came in and bet it at 31, a smaller number. I said, I better go to 25. What the hell? That same gentleman, the first gentleman, came back in, made another large wager, 25-1. As I said, okay, something's going on here. So I think
would that have been the day before?
It was Thursday.
And he made the announcement on Sunday?
He made the announcement on Sunday. So, and this guy, whoever he was, bet all over town. So he bet me at 50-1. I heard somebody else had 60-1. So I wasn't quite the dumbest guy in town. Maybe I wasn't as dumb as the guy that bought Brady's last touchdown pass for $518,000. I did a little better than him.
Breaking news: Chris just called Jay Cornegay dumb.
I did not. No, Jay, I did not. I love Jay. He and I are good friends. Remember when we're losing? It's Jay and I texting each other. Can you believe that guy did that? Yeah. Anyway, so we all got hit pretty good on it, and you mentioned Jay. Jay did call for an investigation. It was in the paper. I did not call for an investigation. I figured, listen, we took the bet. What are you going to do? Matter of fact, I had the paper call me, and I said, well, right now I'm in much worse shape with the Buffalo Bills winning the Super Bowl because I took a really big bet on them at short odds. I think 8 or 10-1, something like that. But I took a pretty large bet on them. So I said, right now, I'd rather have Tampa win than Buffalo. But I got 11 months to figure this out. We'll be okay.
Yeah, but what would an investigation even be? I mean, I don't know. Some guy is a friend of Brady's cousin, and so he gets the word.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like anything illegal happened.
I don't think it's anything illegal. I don't think it's, I think right now, the only problem that some of us have is that the NFL is in bed with a lot of different companies here, a lot of them. And, they've always, since I've been in the business since 79, they've made it a mantra that they want gambling nothing to do, that we're protecting the shield and the integrity of the game, blah, blah, blah. And here it is now, all of a sudden, the most influential player in the history of the NFL retires and then unretires, and somebody made a bet, obviously with that knowledge that he was not going to stay retired, and that's what I have a problem, because I just think a lot of that is, we knew all that stuff was phony, that they were saying they don't want gambling. They love gambling being involved. They
some have
it.
They're sponsors of DraftKings or something.
Yeah, and I think Robert Kraft and Jerry Jones, at least those two, own pieces of DraftKings for sure, and I think maybe FanDuel as well. And we don't know what other owners own pieces. I have a feeling a lot of them do. But those two are always very visible and vocal about pretty much everything they do. So that where I think just the phoniness, I think, is something that bothers me. But I didn't call for an investigation. It's just, we took the bet. We take a lot of bets that look, they still got to play and win. Like I said, the guy who bought the touchdown pass, he's up the creek, I think. That was a bad investment.
All right, we got more questions for Chris Andrews. First, we need to take a brief commercial break. The South Point has more than 10,000 games returning at least 99%. This is more such games than anyone else has. The March promotion is free play with a kicker, which goes to players who already receive mailers. Pick up your usual free play Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, and you'll receive an identical amount Friday or Saturday of the same week. Pick up all 8 free plays, and on Monday, March 28th, you receive double that amount in free play. Overall, you pick up 2.5% your normal amount of free play if you make all of the pickups.
Hey guys, this is Colin from BlackjackApprenticeship.com, and if you're serious about card counting, I'd encourage you to check out the Blackjack Apprenticeship membership. It has the training tools you'll need to beat the game, like our comprehensive video course and our training suite, so you can learn each skill and virtually test yourself before ever stepping foot in a casino. It also includes the tools you'll need to succeed, like our pro betting software, casino database, results tracking software, and access to a community of like-minded Advantage players to network with in our members forum and chat room software. You can find out more at blackjackapprenticeship.com.
Videopoker.com is the best place to play lots of games. If you sign up for the Gold membership, $8.95 a month or $79.95 a year, this allows you to get correction on most of the games. The game of the week is Super Triple Play Jackpots, and it's a game for those who wish to gamble. It requires 7 coins per line. The first extra coin bumps up all the values for the quads. The second extra coin provides you with a wheel spin whenever you end up with a 4 of a kind. Since these quads only come around about every 420 hands or so, it's a heaven or hell experience. If you don't get many quads today, you will not like this game. If you do, you will. If you come across a Super Triple Play Jackpot and don't know the return, you can enter it into a regular video poker software, and it will come out to be 130% or so. You then take that number, multiply by 5, and divide by 7, and that will give you the actual return, taking into consideration that it's a 7-coin bet. All right, we're back to Chris Andrews. Desaun Watson. He's been signed by the Browns after faking everybody out and saying Browns were off his list. I'm wondering if that had anything that affected your world in that one day. And then the league so far hasn't announced what kind of suspension he will face, if any. Has that affected the futures prices?
Well, yes, is the short answer. It's affected him quite a bit. When it looked like, Baker Mayfield kind of had that little statement he put out, and I'm not on anything social media wise other than Twitter, so I don't know if it was on Instagram or Facebook or something like that. It was kind of like saying a goodbye to the city of Cleveland. So we went up to 50-1 because I know they had Case Keenum, but we kind of figured they were going to do something. Anyway, we went to 50-1. Then when Desaun Watson was signed, we quickly lowered them to 20-25-1. They've actually been a very popular team in the future book for the last 4 or 5 years. And it's one of those things where I think if you look up and down their roster, they have a very good roster. The quarterback play hasn't been what they expected. Now, I kind of always liked Baker because I think he played last year with through a lot of injuries, and I think he showed a lot of courage going out there and playing.
Well, he makes good commercials.
I'd like to trade bank accounts with him. Yeah, I think he's done okay in that sense. But we went to 50-1. Then when they signed Watson, we went to 25-1. But I'm like you. I think there has to be some sort of a suspension, no matter whether there's legal ramifications. I mean, other than civil suits or not. I mean, I'm thinking back to Ben Roethlisberger. He never was really charged, and his original suspension was 6 games. They cut it back to 4. I mean, this seems more egregious to me than what Roethlisberger did. So I don't know. I mean, he did sit out a year, but that was kind of voluntarily between he and the team. So I'm not sure what entails this year for the Browns, but all that money, that's the biggest guaranteed money contract in the history of the NFL. That seems a little crazy to me. I don't know. But
it's the Browns.
But it is the Browns. And,
but if a guy comes in with a very big futures bet on the Browns.
Well, right now at 25-1, well, like Bob said, it's still the Browns.
Yeah.
There 1 year we made a mistake. I meant to make the Mets 75-1 to win the World Series. I made them 750-1, and some guy came in, and I remember the guy who was like watching the future book at the time. He said, "Oh my God, I missed!" And I made the number, so I mean, it was me that put it in the computer. It was my mistake. Well, he was watching, and he felt so bad because I can't believe I didn't catch that. And I said, "Listen, okay, the guy got a nice number, but let's not forget." It's still the freaking Mets. I think we're going to be okay. So
hopefully that wasn't 1969.
It was not. I was a little young then. But it was, I think we would take a pretty decent sized bet on the Browns. And I agree with what people were saying, though. It's a hell of a roster. They just needed a quarterback in place. But let's not forget Desaun Watson's last full year. Houston won 4 games. So I don't think this gets you a ticket to the Super Bowl. Although I think he's a hell of a quarterback, I really do. But like I said, we got a long, long way to go.
Now, are other moves so far sufficient to move, like a Wilson going to the Broncos or Rodgers re-signing with the Packers, or do these things move the number right away, or it's like, well, you didn't know if Rodgers was going to re-sign or not. You certainly didn't know he was going to lose his star wide receiver.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot to unpack right there. So let's start with Rodgers.
Okay,
when he was, questionable as to what he was going to do, we had him 12-1. Now we did take. Now once he signed, I didn't lower it automatically because I thought 12-1 was a fairly reasonable price, but a lot of money did come in on him. We dropped all the way down to 8-1. They took 12, they took 10. I went to 8. That kind of slowed things down. But we definitely had a lot of money on them. Then when Devontae Adams signed with the Raiders, I really liked that move myself. I think the Raiders
for the Packers or for the Raiders.
No, not for the Packers. For the Raiders. I think the Raiders made. I think they've had a very good offseason myself. I like some of the moves they've made. I think they kind of helped their pass rush a little bit. I think Adams right now really opens up a lot of doors to their offense, a lot of options. So I really like them. Now I had them 60-1. I think I'm down to 40 or 30. So I didn't go crazy, but I do think that they made some very good moves. Russell Wilson, you mentioned, that's another one. I thought, Denver, similar to the Browns, had a very good roster. I like Stefanski, the coach of the Browns. I don't know much about the coach of the Broncos now, so that leaves the door open a little bit there. But I moved them down considerably. I think I had them 50-1, and I think I went to 20 or 25. They're still in a very tough conference in the AFC West. But I think Wilson is a winner, and I think that he will greatly improve that team. And Seattle, them losing Wilson, I think I want to say 200-1. They should probably be 500-1 without Wilson, but I think I went to 200. We'll kind of reassess what they're going to do. I'm not sure they're just going to stand pat with what they have. And that's the thing. There's just so much going on with. That's why I don't put up all the other stuff until after the draft, which is only going to be a month away. So yeah, all those. I think do have an impact. And one we'll mention right now, the team that lost the Super Bowl last year, the Cincinnati Bengals, I think they've had as good off season as anybody. They've beefed up that offensive line. They signed La'el Collins. I think yesterday or the day before, he's one of the premier left tackles in the league. And I think they've done a lot of good things. Now, we already had them low because they were, the runner-up with a nice young team. But I think right now that's they're good and probably going to get better this coming year.
I would vote on the Bucs having the best offseason, if you include the quarterback position.
Yeah. But, back to the Bucs, though. They still don't have Gronkowski. He hasn't re-signed. I think he will. They lost one offensive lineman. They have another key offensive lineman who's a free agent. I'm not sure where he's going to sign. He still might go back to the Bucs. So, but I think you're right. Listen, like I said, he's the most influential player in the history of the NFL, and you re-signed him. That's got to be a pretty good move.
But he is getting old. I mean, eventually...
He hasn't shown it yet, though.
Yeah, but eventually he's got to start to...
Well, eventually, sure, 100 years from now, we're all going to be dead. But, right now, he had a hell of a year last year. He really did.
Yeah, he led the league in 3 or 4 categories.
Yeah, it was terrific.
Now, you mentioned earlier college basketball. As we tape this, we're before the Sweet 16 March Madness. Now, so 3/4 of the field has been eliminated. So there's 8 games to handicap, and then there'll be 4 more that you have to make pretty quick. How does that affect the odds making going forward?
Well, I just because football's so big, I really don't start following college basketball closely as like a numbers maker probably till I'd say like mid-January, something like that. Now I have 2 guys, Vinny Miolo and Richie Baccellieri, who every year has helped me when we get to the tournament. And South Point puts out the numbers first. As soon as the announcements are made, the matchups, boom, they go on the computer. We take 10,000 a rattle on the opening numbers, and we don't look at anybody else's. We just go with our number and go. I'm glad I'm not doing that by myself because my numbers are not as good as those two. They've been following it since, October 15th when those teams can start going into camp. They follow it from there. So their numbers are better than mine. Even though I have a couple guys, and really I'm very mathematical in what I do, but sometimes the math doesn't tell you everything. It's not really like your business where the math really kind of does tell you everything. There's a lot of matchups in basketball, whereas, you might say, well, I like this team because their guards are better than the other team. And Bob would say, well, I don't like that team because their big men are better than the other team. So that's what creates the matchups. And that's what creates gambling. So it can't be strictly math-based. And my models tend to be a little more math-based probably than those other guys. So I give them a lot of credence when I put together the numbers. Now, fortunately, now I have their power rating. So it's a little easier going forward because I kind of know how they've evaluated all these teams. But, so we put up the numbers fairly quickly once and it's not a matchup that's announced. The teams advance, and we know what the matchups are going to be. So we go pretty quickly. But it's a little easier now, and you can see the numbers. There's not that much movement in the numbers just because these teams have, 30-some games under their belt. So we kind of know what they're all about. But there is, like I say, you got a team like St. Peter's, I certainly didn't. I wasn't aware of them all year. I can tell you that. Other teams like maybe Miami kind of came out of nowhere. With very, very good coach. So teams maybe were a little bit of a sleeper. And Otzenberger is the coach of UNLV. Went to Iowa State. He's had a hell of a year there. I think a lot of people didn't think he was a very good coach, and he probably wasn't at UNLV, but he's fit into Iowa State very well. And that's another team that's kind of caught some people by surprise.
Well, Gonzaga hasn't looked as well as people thought they should.
They struggled the other day. They were on the ropes big time.
So it appears that sportsbook management between the various books, all you guys know and mostly like each other.
I'd say it's true.
And our cousins.
Some of us are, yeah.
Do you ever lay off bets with other books because you've had too much action on the Cowboys or something?
I never have. I personally don't know anyone that has done that, but I know that they did probably way back when, like 60s and 70s. But since that time, I don't know anybody in Nevada.
Is that even legal?
It is legal. It is legal, yeah. There's some procedures you have to follow. Like, let's say Casino X was going to lay off to me. They would have to tell you this is a layoff bet. We're flooded on this and we're doing it. So and you could take it. And, that's how it works. I've heard some rumors of guys doing that, but I don't know of any personally that have done it. It's probably happened, but maybe it's flown under my radar. I've personally never done it. I've personally never taken a layoff bet either.
How much do you personally get involved in setting and moving the lines, and how much is done by your behind-the-scenes staffers?
Well, I'd say in football, as far as like opening the line, 100% me. Moving the line, not so much, because I just can't be there 24 hours a day. Now, I have a very good staff, and I have a lot of trust in them. Now, back in the old days when I first started and when I was running Calneva, like in 1981, I moved virtually, I don't want to say every number, because but 95% and up. It's impossible to do that today. Like when I first started, we had baseball, football, basketball. You had the side and the total. We didn't even have money lines on most games. It was side. So like it was, now if you go to our board, we're booking tennis. We're booking soccer leagues. I love to look. Are we booking them really?
Golf, NASCAR.
Golf. I told the story that the first time I put up golf, and I think it was the Masters, I had one $5 bet, one, and I'm not joking. And that guy didn't tee off. I can't remember who it was, so I wound up having to give the guy the money back. So, I mean, obviously that's unheard of today. Anything approaching that is unheard of. But we have so many things, and even in every single sport, it's impossible for someone like me to put up every number and move every number. That's why you have to have a good crew. This thing has really grown exponentially over the years, and we've had to grow our staffs exponentially as well.
Well, but also for decades, didn't you just get the number from Roxy? I mean, that's what the service was all about, right? To provide the numbers for people.
And I think Roxy would tell you, I was the one helping them with the numbers all those years. So, so yeah,
I hope he took care of you at Christmas.
Roxy and I have a great relationship. To this day, he's one of my very, very best friends. He bought my book and I signed it, and he laughed when I signed it. It was my dear friend. Where would we be without each other? Probably out drinking and gambling somewhere, because that's how we met and that's how we've stayed friends all these years. And that's probably a little too close to the truth. But yeah, I was helping him with the numbers, and not so much baseball. I kind of got out of baseball in the early 80s. It was too much on a daily basis. Following
too many games,
too many pitchers. Too many bullpens. It would just and running a sports book was different than just handicapping. I had a lot of other things involved. So I kind of dropped baseball off my menu over the years. I eventually dropped NBA. Again, that's too much, too many injuries, and what's a player worth? I mean, there's a lot of moving parts there. So I really stuck to college basketball and then football and then. The other sports.
But even in college basketball, there could be, 80, 100 games?
Yeah, that's hard.
And how can you possibly be up on that many games on a given weekend?
Well, that's why I don't get into basketball, college basketball, till I'm kind of done with football. Then I start paying a little more attention more closely. But like I said, I have guys that I rely on, and you have to. That's a big thing in this business is, getting information, but getting the right information. What's Nate Silver's book? The noise,
Signal and the Noise.
The Signal and the Noise, and you have to kind of differentiate. And it's going to be hard to do sometimes, but I have good guys that I believe in and that I follow their lead a lot. And a lot of guys, once we open the numbers, it's not, I don't want to say it's automatic. It's not automatic, but I have a good crew and they kind of know. They kind of know how I want them to move numbers and do things, and they do it well within what I try to prescribe.
Now, Monday Night Football, haven't had particularly exciting announcers for a while. Although years ago,
That's a big understatement. Okay.
although they started out with Howard Cosell
Sure.
and Andy Don, and love them or hate them, that was it.
Loved it.
But now they brought over the Fox main team, Aikman and Buck, to compete against their own Manning and Manning. Will that affect the betting on Monday nights?
I think it will. I think that what we've seen, I'd say a decade, but it's probably more than that, probably more like 20 years, that the Monday night betting has dropped off. Whereas, when I first started in 79 or so, if I came up to you and said, who do you like in the game this week? I think your first thought might be the Monday night game. Now, if I said, who do you like in the game this week? You'd say, what game? I think that's kind of the way it's been. I'm not sure we'll ever get back to with Andy Don and Howard Cosell and Frank Gifford. I don't know if we're ever going to get back to that. I kind of don't think we will. There's too many options out there. But I do think that right now, a big part of it now with ESPN really committing big money to those guys. And I don't know what their contracts were, but they got to be monstrous. And hopefully they'll get some better games too, because I think the quality of the games that the NFL has given them has kind of dropped off. So I'd love to see that get back to where it was, and I think it will help. I think we're going to see a jump in Monday Night Football this year.
That wouldn't affect your handicapping.
Oh, it's not going to affect my handicapping. It might affect our handle, which I hope it does, and I think it will. It might affect my handicapping because over the years we've done a lot of props on Monday night, and like a lot of times you put out props. Some get a lot of action, some get nothing. I'm hoping that kind of ups that prop handle, and I'd love to maybe add a few more props along the way if the business will be there.
Monday night props.
Yeah.
And throughout the book, you had references to your personal betting in football contests where you and a team of, I assume it's other bookmakers. I don't know who your team was, but this was a group that you considered pretty smart, and you did that. So how is this something you usually do? Do we do it again?
Yeah, it's something we usually do. I did it that year, and we took down a little piece of the circa that year. We did it again this year. We got wiped out. We got probably 3/4 of the way through the season. We were toast. Some bookmakers, not all bookmakers, but some of my very, very best friends in town and in the business. All of us have been around a long time, and we've over the years we've done fairly well. But not this last year, we got wiped out pretty quick.
Well, you would think you would have to know something about it, otherwise you couldn't keep your job, and so you would think you'd be a favorite to cash most years.
We've done okay over the years, but there's so much luck involved. I mean, listen, what was you went into the last week of the season just this last year, and I'm looking. We didn't have this; we were wiped out already by then. But you look at the Indianapolis Colts were 14.5 point favorites over Jacksonville, lost the game. And I know a lot of guys had them in the circa contest, the last man standing or whatever they call it, Survivor, last man standing. They got wiped out on that. Made perfect sense to bet on the Colts that week. Didn't work out that way. So there's always a lot of luck involved. And the luck was against us this year, but we've already talked about our strategy for next year, so I'm sure most of the guys will be back in it again.
Now, you mentioned the possibility of a third book. You said it'll talk a little bit about your wife. But so most of the pages you threw away from the second book, and then 1 year, are going to be about your diary for the year 2020. So
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
No. I had a lot of stories like kind of that maybe were topical considering what was happening during that day. It reminds me of this one story. I remember I have a story about the Bengals and the 49ers, and that there was something that kind of triggered that, and that got on the cutting room floor. That'll be in the next book. I had a story about Joe Montana. Good. That'll be in the next book. just kind of things came up along the way. So, I mean, there may be a few things that are in the diary that didn't make it. But overall, just a lot of stories. I think it'll be a lot more similar to the first book, that has sold very well, continues to sell well. So I think it'll be a lot more closely associated with the first book.
It surprised me when Roxy was here. I don't know if it was on the air or when he was talking to us before or after. He said he's purchased 40 of the first book and 10 of the second.
Dan, you better pick up the pace a little bit.
So I don't know if you heard the interview we did with Roxy. You were mentioned several times. Is there his recollection differ from yours on anything major?
Nothing major. No. Our recollections are pretty similar. The only difference is, I would say, sometimes we were maybe under the influence of one thing or another as we were recollecting some things. So that may differ, but no, our recollection is probably pretty close.
Very good. All right. We've been talking to Chris Andrews, his book, And Then 1 Year. So at the end of our show, we have a recommended section. So, Richard, do you have a recommended for our audience today?
I have two, just, because I can't contain myself. There are two new shows that I am just loving, and unfortunately, they can't be binged. They're shows where you actually have to wait a week, like in the old days, to see the new episode. And the first one is on Showtime, and it's called Super Pumped, and it's about the rise of Uber. And apparently there's a book of the same title. It's produced by Koppelman and Levine, the guys who did Rounders and who do the show Billions, which is also very good. And the show is just amazing and makes me want to never take an Uber again. The guy who started that company is the biggest asshole I have ever seen. Watching it is riveting. And then the other show, which definitely I think lots of our listeners will like and are probably already watching, is The Rise of the Lakers on HBO. And it's about when Jerry Buss bought the Lakers. And it is so good, and the actors they've cast look so much. The guy who's playing Magic Johnson, it's amazing how much he looks like him, and the guy playing Jerry West, and the guy John C. Reilly plays Dr. Buss.
Yeah,
he's just great in the show.
He's been fantastic.
And yeah, I mean the show is just great. And
you're not really a sports fan.
I'm not. I mean, I'm a bit of a basketball fan, and I lived in LA for a long time, and I like the Lakers. And my son is very big into basketball, so he grew up as a big Lakers fan. But anyway, yeah, the show is just great, and I have to say I didn't know that much about that era, so. And the other thing that's amazing about the show is, like, these guys are still alive. Jerry West and Kareem come off as such big assholes. It's unbelievable that they can portray them this way and they're still alive and they're not very upset about it. Yeah, but anyway, I can't recommend that show highly enough. Both those shows highly enough. Just fantastic.
Well, I'm going to recommend something else at the same. But I have loved that. I haven't seen last night's episode yet.
Well, actually, you know what? Maybe you were aware of this. So I was not aware of this at all. But, Jerry West quit when Magic got there and was not going to be the coach 2 weeks before the season started. And they went to Tarkanian, who was like God here in Vegas at that time. I mean, yeah, I don't want to spoil anything for you or whatever, but maybe you were aware of that at the time.
I was not aware of the Tarkanian connection. No.
Yeah. They came. Dr. Buss came here and tried to recruit Tarkanian away from the Running Rebels when they were in there. He was God at that point in this town. So, anyway, I'm learning a lot about the history of the Lakers.
Well, I got Jerry West's autobiography. That he wrote, and it sold very well, and I heard good things about it. I read that book, and it's by the end of the book, is Jerry West has some real issues.
Oh, yeah.
Man, oh, man. And I remember, like, and then I think I bought Eric Clapton's autobiography afterwards. And afterwards I told my wife, I am done with autobiographies. These things, they're either thanking somebody or I feel like I'm a therapist and they're on the couch in front of me. These things are terrible. Biographies is different. Autobiographies, I think I'm pretty much done with. But Jerry West had some real issues there. Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to go in a totally different direction here. There's a book, I've got.
Before you do, we'll get to you.
Okay.
But on the Lakers show, in the book, Then One Year, you come across as not a Laker lover.
I am not a Laker lover. No.
And yet, are you still finding this the show about the rise of the Lakers interesting, or is it okay? Well, I got to do it because it's part of my business, and
no, I mean, I think you can see I'm not a Laker lover. I grew up on the East Coast. Now we were in Pittsburgh. We didn't have an NBA team, but like in our neighborhood, it seemed like there were two sects, if you want to say it. One was Celtic fans, and one was really like Wilt Chamberlain fans. And then, of course, he was with Philadelphia and then went to the Lakers. So there were like two groups of fans, and I was on the Celtic side. The neighborhood was pretty well split, So, I mean, that's carried with me pretty much my whole life. Then Wilt went to the Lakers, and like I said, half the group became Laker fans, and I remained a Celtic fan. I'm probably not nearly so much today. It doesn't seem worth it. But, yeah, that probably comes through. Now, as a bookmaker, the Lakers have been beating me for the last 30, 40 years. So that's another reason why I'm not a great Laker fan. I mean, they what can you say? They've been a great, great franchise. They've had great players. But unfortunately, people bet on them all the time, and they wind up kicking my ass a lot. So I'm not going to root for them.
But as a Celtics fan, you still like the show.
I love the show. The show's great. Yeah, because you are seeing it's the rise of the Lakers, but there's a lot of the dark side of the rise of the Lakers too. Yeah. So it's extremely intriguing.
All right. So we cut you off in front of what you were going to recommend. So we'll cut you on now.
Okay. Way out of left field here. So,
okay.
All right. There's a book, and since I've become quote unquote a writer, I've gotten to know a few other writers, and there's a girl, a friend of mine, a female, who's had a couple books published, and her and I talk occasionally. Anyway, she recommended this book to me. It's called The Plot. And
yes,
have you heard of this book?
Yes,
it's an excellent book, and
it
was one of those books I read in like 2 days. I thought it was great, and my wife's read it, and it's one of those page turner type books, and very well written, and there is a great plot inside the book. The plot.
Didn't you recommend this book a couple
did.
months
Did you really?
ago?
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
It was more than a couple months. But
okay.
Yeah, I definitely recommended the book. It was by an author that I had not heard of at that time.
Yeah, I've just brought up her name here, Jean Hanff Korelitz.
Yeah, we'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, but she's written some other books too. So
I have not picked up any of her others.
Me neither.
I have she's on my list of authors to look out for.
Yeah, I just enjoyed that book. Like I said, I gave it to my wife. She loved it. I gave it to my daughter. She loved it. It's just one of those. It's just a fun read. It's really, and there's a nice twist at the end. So it's pretty cool.
So my book is the latest by John Grisham. It is The Judge's List. I've been getting letters saying, why you talk about bestsellers? The recommended should be something a little bit offbeat. And I was just going, well, because it's my show. I can do what I want, basically is my answer. But I've never said that before. And I'll probably wish I didn't say it this time. But this latest John Grisham legal thriller centers around a judge who has a hit list of people who have wronged him through the years. But since he is a judge, he knows a lot about forensics and how to avoid leaving clues. Now, I like most of the John Grisham novels. What interests me most this time is the technical stuff involving computer hacking. So it's worth the read. The Judge's List.
By the way, I just thought of this as we were talking. One of the things that we recommended in the past was a book called Endurance about this Shackleton who went to Antarctica and their ship got stuck in the ice and they had to... It's just this amazing story. But anyway, just recently, some listeners emailed me. They found the ship. And there's pretty amazing video footage that they sent cameras down, and a lot of the ship is intact. And I found it pretty cool to look at. So I'll put a link to that on the show notes too. If for people who read that book, Endurance, it was a really, really excellent book, and I just found this footage of the sunken ship cool.
All right. So thank you, Chris Andrews. You were a lot of fun last time. You're a lot of fun this time too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Go out and hit lots of royal flushes, everybody. Good day.